Back with you at Bowman Gray Stadium. The field is underway behind the pace car in this stadium, which is a football field, which is also a great racetrack, Parker.
Yeah, this is a quarter-mile flat track, absolutely no banking. And how fitting for it to be the Hall of Fame 150 when you've had drivers who are in the Hall of Fame racing here, all the way to the drivers we see here today, trying to make it to the Hall of Fame one day.
Glenn Wood has 4 wins here. Richard Petty has 3. Bobby Allison has 1 here. It's a who's who list in NASCAR. So speaking of who's who might be next? Derek Perniciglio has a driver he wants you to keep a watch on tonight.
Even though he's starting deep in the field, keep an eye on that number 3 of Kaz Grala. He's in the top 10 in points right now. He tested here on Wednesday, and when they did test, they said they felt really good. They felt really confident going into tonight's race. But the car started to go away a little bit. They had a little bit of a stagger problem. That stagger problem made him start 13th, but he'll be one to watch when we go green.
Dave, you know what's interesting about that is that normally that means that a driver had too little stagger. He couldn't turn through the center of the racetrack, especially at a flat racetrack like Bowman Gray.
Let's take a look at the entire starting grid. Scott Heckert, his 4th career pole in the K&N Pro Series. The highest qualifying Rev Racing car, the 42 of Jay Beasley, inside row number 4.
A couple drivers to watch tonight in their hometown race. That's the 49 of John Holloman, the 44 of Dylan Bassett, and the 04 of Ronnie Bassett Jr. All would have hoped to have a better qualifying from their home crowd, and they've got a lot of work cut out for them tonight.
It's a hard place to pass. Heckert and Haley have the best seats as we go green at Bowman Gray. Heckert with the early jump on his teammate as they go through 1 and 2.
Absolutely, Dave. That dominant line there right on the bottom, right next to that curb. It's going to be the place to be all night long.
Another teammate, Dalton Sargent, in the 51. He moves through and immediately takes 2nd.
Yeah, those H. Scott Motorsport cars are really impressive here tonight. They're really just cutting to the center. Even in this early couple laps, you can see how they just have a ton of speed rolling right on that bottom.
They had 4 of the top 5 qualifying spots. The other one to that 22 of Austin Hill. He's now going to move inside Haley as well. And Haley, after starting on the outside of the front row, he is all the way back to 4th and maybe worse.
Yeah, there he slots in. Now he gets to the bottom. That's exactly what you need to do. Be patient. Get yourself on the bottom and start moving forward, protecting your race car and protecting your tires at this flat racetrack.
Teammate William Byron there in the blue and white 9, giving him a little bit of a break there as Byron is now back in the 5th position. You see the leaders pulling away just a little bit. Heckert and Sargent have opened up a gap.
Absolutely. One thing to watch here is the cars that get down into the corner really easily and are able to almost not have the front slam too hard. If they slam the front too hard, they can really abuse the front end of these race cars, and over the course of a long run will start to get tight, and when you get tight at a place like this, you're going to go backwards.
Austin Hill in the white and orange 22. He's now working to catch those leaders, having made his way through. Single file all the way around Bowman Gray. We're going to see a lot of that tonight, Parker. What's the challenge for these drivers?
Well, the biggest thing right here, and especially this early in the race, is getting in a rhythm. You hear it a lot, but when you get in a rhythm, suddenly the motor, as it builds up the RPMs, as it goes down the RPMs, you could drive it with your eyes closed sometimes and you get in such a good rhythm. Unlike his teammate there, Dalton Sargent, he's having to focus on what Scott's doing, but also make sure to drive his own race, Dave.
You also see their teammate, William Byron, in the 9. He's focused on the back bumper of J.J. Haley. Both of those drivers, young men. Haley, a sophomore in high school, 16-year-old, and William Byron, he's 17 as well. Both getting experience here in the K&N Pro Series.
Yeah, and for J.J. Haley there in the 5, running so close to Austin Hill in the 22, he needs to protect the heat of his race car. What I mean by that is he doesn't want to let too much heat get in the brakes, too much heat get on the front tires, running that close to Austin. It's something that's very tough for race car drivers to almost back off and just protect your race car. I can't emphasize it enough. Patience and protecting your race car here will pay off dividends come the end of the race.
I'm getting the idea they're using brakes in every single lap here at the Bowman Gray Stadium. Derek?
One of those drivers that has snuck his way up into the mix is that number 42 machine of Jay Beasley. He knows what it's all about to race on the short tracks. He comes from racing super late models in the home ring at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, so he understands about racing inside a closed, tight, confined facility. So he's got a good run going, and he finished 9th in this race last year.
Yep, 23-year-old Jay Beasley. The bull ring at Vegas, good comparison here, you think, Parker?
Absolutely. That's another very small, tight racetrack, as you heard Derek say. I mean, how loud is it down there? You can barely hear Derek over the engine noise at this place.
Nothing like short track racing, whether you're driving in it, whether you're working in the broadcast booth. Rico Abreu, he's finding out about short track racing in that 98 car, the Chili Bowl winner in open wheel, now making his transition to stock cars, currently running in the 8th position.
Yeah, and when I look at his car right now, I saw him just get a little bit off that curb down there in 1 and 2, and what that tells me is he might just be a little bit tight, and that's something for Rico to work on in these big, heavy cars coming from the midgets, is that you have to finesse the race car. You've got to let it do its thing and not try to be ahead of the race car. It's going to be ahead of you all the time.
We talked about what a throwback place Bowman Gray Stadium is. How about that throwback paint scheme on Kenzie Rustin's car? The blue and yellow Sunoco colors. Love that.
How fitting in the Hall of Fame 150 to have a car like that, looking that great. Really nice under the lights here at Bowman Gray.
You see Kyle Benjamin now in that 27 fighting with Kaz Gralla. Remember, Kaz was our driver to watch per Derek at the start of the race. We'll keep our eye on him. Remember, he started 13th, trying to work his way forward.
Yeah, and he had that stagger problem when you see it get a little bit into Kyle Benjamin there, and that's what you got to do here, is you got to use that bumper sometimes just in, and I think there's a difference between wrecking a guy using your bumper and just moving him and giving him a little nudge to get under them and go on forward, and hopefully the patience pays off and the other driver plays with you nicely and you're able to move on and go on with the race.
No question, Kyle knows he's there now, right?
He will now, definitely, if his spotter hasn't told him already.
12th place being contended by Nick Drake and Devin Amos, who you met at the beginning of our show. And right behind Devin, the one car being driven this week by Mason Mitchell, the ARCA champion. So Shiggy Hattori getting that one car back in the K&N Pro Series East. Mason Mitchell at the wheel.
Yeah, actually, you just saw him hit the curb there. We don't want to do that tonight. I can't stress enough as well is that curb can be very inviting to maybe cut the racetrack. Ooh, we've got a little trouble here at the 31.
David Garbo Jr. down to the inside, and he's got damage on that right front.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what happened here. Maybe a little bit of product of the bottom of that car getting in the grass, which can happen here and really destroy that front end, and hopefully it doesn't get too much in that right front. It looks like they have enough clearance, so he should be able to continue.
Garbo qualified 17th out of 21. The Connecticut driver with more trouble now as he's getting passed by the lead group.
Yeah, and he just needs to be smart here. You know, at the end of the day, he's probably not in it anymore, a small track like this, to be already going a lap down this early in the race. Just needs to be smart, get out of the way, and let the leaders race their race.
There are the leaders. Scott Heckert down with a little bit of a gap over Dalton Sargent as they get ready to put a lap on Justin LeDuc.
We've got Kaz Gralla finally getting under Kyle Benjamin here, and now Kyle needs to be smart because he's about to go under what we call the freight train, which you see the 15 get by, and you've got another car, Devin Amos, going under him. That happens here. He needs to be patient once again. We're really early in this race. Find a way to slot back into that bottom side and start moving forward. We know he has a good race car.
Kyle Benjamin caught on the high side and going the wrong direction here at Bowman Gray as Scott Heckert continues to lead. Back with you at Bowman Gray Stadium, the NASCAR Hall of Fame 150 underway. That guy, Scott Heckert in the 34, he's led every lap from the pole.
Yeah, Dave, he's had a dominant time here. He's actually negotiated traffic so well, beating and putting a ton of time between himself and his teammate Dalton Sargent, and that's what's really impressive in that 34 car.
You see Ronnie Bassett Jr. in that 04. He's caught on the outside now as the leaders go by. He's hoping for a much better night here at his home track. Sargent in the 51, Austin Hill in the 22, Haley in the 5.
Yeah, and these guys, you know, the leader there, Scott Heckert's getting away from them, but they're in a good position. Look, this place is historically going to cause caution, so if they just stay patient again, as I said before, they stay easy, they were working together through traffic, not rough their car up too much in traffic, although that's easier said than done sometimes, Dave. You might find yourself back in contention.
Yeah, exactly. We mentioned at the top of the show, Dalton Sargent in 8th position in the points now after a couple of bad runs. He hasn't won yet this year in the East Series. Did have that West Series win at Kern County, but that 51 driver looking to get his program back together tonight.
Yeah, and the 22 there of Austin Hill has actually caught up to the 51 of Dalton Sargent from the beginning of this race. And that just tells me that he's been able to get through traffic a little bit better. Maybe his car's coming to him, turning better in the center. He's really tight on that inside line. He doesn't have too much brake glow, so I look at that 22 as being someone that might come really on in the late stage of this race.
The Winston, Georgia driver having a good run in Winston-Salem, North Carolina tonight. The 22 of Austin Hill currently in 3rd, 4th place to J.J. Haley. Mentioned him before.
Yeah, absolutely. And he, in his position right now, those three are very close together. I think they're all in a really good position now. Being in the top 5 at this racetrack is a place to be, because if you're in the top 5 and you can get a restart where you're on the bottom line, you might just have a chance to get yourself up towards the lead.
And Haley's kind of settling down after a hard start to the season. Had a couple of bad races, and then a 9th place at Bristol and a 6th place at Iowa. So the 5 driver bringing his program back to the front as well.
Yeah, and that trend is heading in the right direction. That's what you want to see as a race team and a driver is going in the positive direction finishes-wise. Ooh, we've got a little bit of a tussle
right in front of the leader, right?
Exactly. He needs to be smart here. Let those two play it out and then go by. He's got a huge lead.
Derek Penasiglio.
Out of all 24 teams that are here tonight, there's only 6 of them that are running that new 5-star composite body. The rest of them are going with last year's body, and for good reason. There's a lot of bumping and banging here at the Bowman Gray Stadium, so you might as well use up that inventory because it's going to be obsolete at the end of this year. But the other advantage that they get with the older body styles is that they get more shock travel. Here on the shorter tracks, they use the old up and down setup on the cars. They don't coil bind them like they do on some of the big tracks. So they use that old up and down setup that allows for more shock travel. Plus, it allows them to use up some of the equipment they already had that's not going to be any good for next year.
It's a good point, Derek. And we see the 34 there of Scott Hecker using that older metal body to his advantage to move some of the lappers out of the way. And that's definitely something to look at for these guys, is that composite body was faster at Iowa on the bigger tracks, maybe creating a little bit more downforce, and that extra travel is very big with coil binding. But here at the short track, you want the toughest thing you have in your arsenal to come out here and bump and grind with the best of them.
Hecker got by local driver John Holloman the 4th there in that 49 car. Next is Colin Cabry in the 2. Those two were going at it, but the leader found a way by the first of them. Now Dalton Sargent in that 51. He's got to work the traffic as well.
Yeah, and he's been smart, and so the 51 there has crept up to the 34, and that's what's going to happen throughout this race, especially how often they're going to run into lappers. It's going to have that accordion effect. 34 of Scott Hecker is going to get a little bit of a big lead. He'll get caught up in traffic. The 51 will get through traffic a little better and catch up to him. We just need to see that accordion play out all night.
And what about the speed, Parker? At this point, it looks like they're pretty evenly matched, and save for a bumper event, they really are running together, the 34 and the 51.
Absolutely. The teammates of the H. Scott Motorsports cars, they probably have similar setups, or the teams have worked together through practice and qualifying to get to this point. And so now it's down to the drivers making the right decisions, protecting the race car, maybe, adjusting the brake bias a little bit. That can affect the race car to short track a lot. Those are the little things that are going to make a big difference come the end of this race. As you see, Scott Hecker going to the outside of the 2 car here, and that allows that 51 to get that accordion effect again, get up to him. He'll get around the 2 a little quicker, and that's just going to happen all night. And as long as they're smart about that, they'll definitely sort it out come the end.
You saw some good sportsmanship there. The 49 of Holloman moved over, let the leaders get by, as did the 2 of Cabry. Now they get back to their battle as Austin Hill pulls up on them.
Yeah, and this is where the 22...
Whoa!
Oh, gosh.
Back to their battle.
They're using that metal body again there to their advantage. And this is short track racing. This is what you see all night long. And if as a driver, it's totally normal. You just don't want to see one of those cars suddenly go sideways in front of you and end your night. And
Holloman is no stranger to this track. He runs here weekly, has won in the Street Stock Series here, so he understands how to get around Bowman Gray Stadium. Sometimes that means pushing and shoving.
Absolutely. He's using it to his experience to his advantage. Oh, getting into the 22 of Austin Hill there. And, as a lapper, that's a bit frowned upon, especially if I'm in Austin's position. I'm a little upset about that one. You could easily cut my tire down or, upset my race car that spun out and took out a great running position in 3rd there.
No harm, no foul. That new-bodied number 22 moves on through. J.J. Haley will get by Holloman. And here comes William Byron, the 2-time winner already this year in that 9 car. He won at Greenville Pickens Speedway. He was the class winner, if you will, at Iowa, running 2nd to Brandon McReynolds of the West. The 9 of William Byron will try to find a way forward now. Yeah, and he's having a smart race. That's what he needs to do. He's having an excellent season so far. Oh, and the 49 there of Josh Holloman is having kind of the eventful couple laps there, Dave. Jay Beasley trying to get to his outside now. Greg Galding stuck behind him. There's the 98 of Abreu. Kaz Grala in the 3 pulling up as well. Battle for 6 is between Beasley and Galding. We're seeing a lot of guys being able to actually use that outside line through these lappers. We saw Scott Hecker do it. We're seeing Beasley try and work that outside line as the 49 is going to spin right in front of him. Able to negotiate well, and oof, a little bit of damage there on Rico's car. And that brings out the caution. John Holloman the 4th. going around in turn number 4. The field will come to the caution flag. Now, we mentioned Byron, of course. He is the championship leader at this point by some 14 points going into the night over Austin Hill and Kyle Benjamin. So all those positions, like you talked about, Parker, important to the driver of the 9.
Absolutely. In a points battle over an entire season, that's what matters, is the nights like this where maybe you don't have a winning car, you go out there and get the best finish possible, sometimes meaning just a top 5.
Take a look and see if we can see what happened to Holloman. I think we've seen it already. Let's see it again.
Yeah, I think you see a little bit of impatience between the guys that are coming around and lapping Holloman here. Beasley was trying to use the outside. He had Gaulding coming the inside of him. The 49 was slipping up, and it seemed like maybe at that point all kind of ended up in the same piece of racetrack, and the 49 went around.
So try as he might, John Holloman just cannot stay out of the way of these faster leaders, and he goes for a spin. There's Jay Beasley, the driver that got into the back of him. NASCAR doesn't have a send you to the back rule. Now, they weren't racing for position, but they don't have that rule where they send you to the back.
No, and especially at a place like this, that's going to happen. I mean, at the end of the day, the John Holloman there in the 49 really should have been trying to give those guys more room than he was. I know he's trying to race his race, but at the same time, these guys are up front, and they're also racing very intensely at the front, and when you end up too wide and one guy's slower in front, you're going to end up with a spin.
And the caution, of course, gives a little opportunity for the fans to do what they do.
That's to eat
that
good
looks
food,
good.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
This is Bowman Gray Stadium. I'm Dave Burns. He's Parker Kligerman. Derek Pernasiglio is patrolling the infield. There's not really a pit road here tonight. 150 laps in the NASCAR Hall of Fame 150. There will be no halfway break. And so far, Scott Heckert from the pole has led every lap. As we come to the restart, he's got the point again. This time, Dalton Sargent with a little better restart, but Heckert squeezes free down the backstretch.
Yeah, that's a good restart by 51 of Dalton Sargent there, hanging on the outside of 34 Scott. But how quickly and how good his restart was, he was able to get to the bottom, and that's what's most important here.
J.J. Haley in the 5 trying to not get hung up again as he did on one of the previous restarts, battling side by side with Austin Hill.
Yeah, and this is where Austin Hill is maybe going to make his race car a little wider than most times. He's going to try and slide out a little bit and force that 5 to farther outside where he has zero grip and eventually take that position in third.
Teammate William Byron in the 9 gave him a little bit of a break earlier, did he, to Haley, and caution comes out as they battle for that position. I saw some dust fly down there in turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, we've got a bit of a melee down here.
There it is.
The 3 of Kaz Grala, the 98 of Rico Abreu, who was involved a little bit in that last incident going through the grass. He dented the front of his composite body there.
Nick Drake also involved in the 15 car, so a 3-car pileup in turn number 1 brings us to a halt again.
And that's another one of those composite bodies, and you can see how it just crumpled up on the front end. The good thing is I see a lot of separation between the tire and the body in these cars, and so that means you can dent them up a little bit. As long as they're not touching the tire, it's fair game here.
So, caution on the speedway. Scott Heckert is your leader. Do Dalton Sargent and Austin Hill have anything for the driver of the 34? Back with you in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, the site of tonight's K&N Pro Series East race. The fans have come out and packed this stadium as they often do on a weekly basis. They've come for the Touring Series tonight, K&N Pro, and Scott Heckert has been the class of the field since qualifying. He was on the pole and has led every lap. John Holloman kept trying to get out of the way, but finally was pushed aside by Jay Beasley. And this 3-car pileup has brought out our most recent caution, Abreu, Grala, and Drake, all able to get going again and rejoin this field. Leaders are behind the pace car. Heckert and Dalton Sargent, as it's been all night, will lead the field back to green on this flat quarter mile.
Really strong restart by the 34 of Scott Heckert there. Really got a big jump on the 51 coming off 2. He's going to keep the lead once again.
And a car length or 2. So Sargent not as good as the last restart. That side-by-side battle between Haley and the 22 of Austin Hill is now going to be won by Hill, so they separate early.
Yeah, those two have just been going at it all night. They can't seem to get away from each other. But definitely got single file a little quicker this time, and maybe they'll keep up with the leaders a little bit better.
Side-by-side battle here. Greg Gaulding just squeezing by Jay Beasley.
Yeah, and Jay Beasley also squeezed right in front of Devin Amos there, really tight. I think they even touched a little bit, so that's just product of, once again, short track racing.
Gaulding took 6th, Beasley back to 7th, Amos in 8th, Nick Drake 9th. This is the battle for 10th between Kenzie Ruston and on the inside, Mason Mitchell. He's got the spot.
And that's really using the bumper there, just driving right in the door of Kenzie Ruston and moving her out of the way. And hey, he got the pass done, no harm, no foul.
The green and white 44 of Dylan Bassett you see there stuck on the outside. Kyle Benjamin to the inside. That is the battle for 15th.
Yeah, Kyle Benjamin making a run back to the field here after a couple tough incidents. And, you know, maybe we'll see the real speed of this race car if he can drive back up to the field and get in the top 10.
Your leaders have pulled away just a bit, and Heckert just a little bit of light now between himself and Dalton Sargent.
Yeah, that 34 car is just absolutely dominant tonight. Actually, an interesting story about that 34 car is that chassis was an original DEI Dale Jr. Xfinity chassis. It went over to their K&N Series team where Trevor Bayne won in it. Other drivers like Ryan Truex have won in it. Brett Moffitt has won 2 races in that chassis. And the body on it was actually out in the shop of H. Scott Motorsports in the parking lot for 30 days or so. So it's definitely an interesting race car to have brought to this racetrack.
Cars have stories in this sport, don't they?
They do, they do. They're, you know, they kind of have a soul sometimes, a lot of drivers.
The soul of the 34, a leading and winning race car, certainly paying off for Scott Heckert tonight as he continues on the point. This is the battle back behind he and Dalton Sargent for 3rd. Austin Hill, J.J. Haley, William Byron, and Gray Gaulding. Gaulding, actually a good run for him after starting 9th, has found his way back up toward the lead pack.
Yeah, and he's actually got a little bit of damage there on the rear bumper, which normally means you're going backwards, but he seems to be going forward. So I think he's got a good race car there. He's obviously getting through the center well, which we've talked about a lot is the most important thing. And just see how he really actually is using that curb on the inside, which can be dangerous with abusing that left front tire, maybe even possibly cutting it. But it's working for him right now, and hopefully he can figure that out, take care of that left front, and keep moving forward.
And you got to take care. There will not be a tire change unless you're in real trouble here, and then you probably won't win. There will not be a fuel stop. These guys are going the distance 150 laps on a quarter mile, and the way that it's measured, it only comes out to about 38 miles, Parker. This is a short distance race.
Oh, gosh, yeah, very short race. Time as well. But actually, what I'm seeing here of this train is that Austin Hill is maybe just not as good as he was before that caution. Whatever reason, he might be a little bit tight or not getting off the corner as well, but he's causing a little bit of backup in this, and sometimes he needs to be careful because those guys can get very impatient behind him, and suddenly he might find himself spun around.
J.J. Haley in the 5 will consider his options. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, I think so, and as he gets to the inside here, this is a perfect opportunity to strike. He gets it done. That's a really good pass. Using the lap car there as a pick, got to the front.
Without any contact, a good move by J.J. Haley in the 5 car. Let's go down to pit lane and Derek.
Austin Hill runs to the top 5 right now. He sits 2nd in points, but he's got some experience at the Bowman race stadium. He finished 3rd in this race last year, but he had to take a long drive back to the Dover International Speedway last night. He ran in the truck race there and ended up finishing 16th. He had a top 10 run going until the tire went bad late in the race. He had to pit, and that's what dropped him back. But he started 5th at the top of the green here, and for him to run up front all night.
Derek, thanks. And I think, Parker, we can really see what you were pointing out. He's not the fastest car in that group, and they're all trying to get by. A couple have already.
Yeah, and the second J.J. Haley in the 5 got by him, he's darted away. So that really tells you Austin Hill is struggling that 22. You know, maybe it's just a product if he's abused that right front or he's actually burnt off the right rear and is unable to get the throttle down. There's a couple things that can happen here, but most important is that he's just not as fast. He's holding those guys up, and they're going to find a way past him. That's for sure.
And championship leader William Byron in the 9. He's not going to take any chances and ruin his night and his chances to maintain that points lead. Scott Heckert still at the point. Entered tonight 4th in the championship. Not that many points behind William Byron. A victory could go a long way toward his championship hopes, Parker.
Absolutely. A victory can always go a long way. As we say in racing, winning fixes everything. And I think tonight, especially winning at a place as historic as Bowman Gray, can fix a lot of things for a lot of race teams.
So what do you do now if you're Sargent? 50 laps to go. You've been behind the 34 all night. Now he's gapping you.
Yeah, and this is a tough position to be. This is where you can maybe start over-driving a little bit too much. You know, you start to abuse your brakes. Oh, we've got a big
Austin
wreck
Hill
here.
and William Byron. As soon as we talk about Byron not getting into trouble, he's around, and Austin Hill is as well.
Dave, I think you jinxed him a little bit there, but I think this is a product maybe of, as we saw, the 22 was going backwards, and those guys behind him probably were getting pretty impatient, including the 5 or the 9 of William Byron, and this is how things sometimes end up.
To see how this all happened. The field's squirting by now. as we're under caution again here at Bowman Gray Stadium. Championship leader William Byron in a spin with Austin Hill, who was going backwards through the field.
Yeah, you can see a little bit of damage there. William Byron, I mean, once again, as I said before, you know, as long as that the bodywork isn't touching the tire, and then once you get going, it's not touching the tire, you're okay here at a place like this. Aerodynamics don't mean anything, really. So I think, you know, in that sense, they're all right, but they're most likely a lap down now, and this is a bad position to be.
Let's see what happened. Turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, so he just a little impatient there. The 22 looked like he was definitely struggling. Ooh, Jay Beasley got into as well. And that's what we were talking about. You know, the 22 was struggling either with getting through the center or just not being able to get back to the throttle. And those guys, having been so close together, got a little impatient. William tried to move him probably out of the way to kind of slip under him. And when he did it, they spun around a little too quick, and the 42 there behind him, Jay Beasley, got in the back of him. We ended up with a big spin.
Trouble for the championship leader here at Bowman Gray. We'll be back with more. There's not a bad seat in the house at Bowman Gray Stadium, and they have seen some action here tonight. The field under caution for the spin between William Byron, the championship leader, and Austin Hill in the 22. They will start near the rear of this field as Scott Heckert and Dalton Sargent once again get prepared to bring them to green. Haley and Beasley in row 2, followed by Gaulding and Amos. We're green again at Bowman Gray.
Not as good a jump for Scott Heckert there, but effective. He got the lead once again. He's pulling away, and I think that's really important for Dalton Sargent to be able to slot in there right in front of J.J. Haley. He did, and now we're back to those two fighting for the lead once again.
Single file back to the 6th position where we find the 6th car. What a good run for Devin Amos.
Yes, absolutely. And Jay Beasley there, who was involved in that latest wreck a little bit. He's got a crunched up hood there. As long as he can see over it, he's doing a really great job getting into the top 5.
Further back, you can perhaps pick out the championship leader Byron and the 22 of Austin Hill. This is a battle for 10th between Rico Abreu and Kaz Grala, who we talked about earlier in the broadcast.
Yeah, and Kaz Grala was one who tested here. He's probably hoping to have a little bit better night after that. And Rico just gets into his bumper, trying to rough him up a little bit, move him out of the way. They both have those new composite bodies. You can see both of them have taken a little bit of a beating, but they're going forward.
There you see Hill in the 22. That's where we find him. Let's take a look at Grala there. He was involved in an incident on lap 73. Has moved back toward the top, now in the top 10.
Yeah, that's good. That's, you know, exactly what you need to do. You need to come back from the, getting in the back of Kenzie Russ in there a little bit. So they're getting impatient here with 40 to go. I think, you know, we're starting to see where these guys and girls are going out there and saying, you know what, I need to get every place I can get because there's very little time left.
Grala trying to come back from Iowa, where he had a terrible day, 3 flat tires and an alternator failure. So he's trying to make his comeback here at Bowman Gray tonight. There's William Byron after that spin.
Yeah, and you know, the thing about that car is it actually looks pretty good for the size of the wreck they're in there and getting hit from both ends. But being a lap down, I'm not sure quite what he can do from here on out. He just needs to maybe hope for a bunch of cautions and then get back up there.
We heard Derek report earlier, use up the parts and pieces from these bodies, as next year they will bring the new bodies into the field even more. 2017 mandatory that everybody runs the chassis and the body that NASCAR is mandating for the future of the K&N Pro Series.
Definitely a good move. And as you see, those composite bodies have they've stood up to the test tonight. And if there's any place that will test that body's durability, it's here at Bowman Gray.
A clean view right now for the leaders. Scott Heckert has not given up the lead once tonight to teammate Dalton Sargent or teammate J.J. Haley. And he's got no traffic to deal with right now, so there's that rhythm, Parker, that you were talking about before.
Yeah, he keeps getting into it very, very well. He has a car that I consistently see just cutting through the center well, and when it does that, it makes it easy to get off the corner because it's straight. When you do that, you protect your tires, and he has the dominant run he's having tonight.
Kenzie Ruston in the throwback Sunoco scheme, trying to keep Kaz Grala behind her. She's got the 9th position. Grala's trying to grab it. Big contact in 4 that time.
I was just going to say, I've noticed Kaz is really driving in the corners deep. You know, Kenzie's maybe being a little bit easier on the entry, and he's getting right to her bumper, and she's getting a better drive off. And she's probably doing the right thing. He's being a little bit aggressive, and we see them getting together there in the front of that 3 car, showing the wounds of driving in so deep.
2 different ways to drive the track, and they don't always match.
Exactly, and that's where you end up with that little bumper tag they've got here. You know, you see the 3 fall back a little bit, might catch up as we get to the center here, and it slides out, but you know what, that doesn't always work, and it only works really for a short amount of time before you really abuse those tires.
Kaz Grala only 16 years old. making his name now in the K&N Pro Series East. Driving for Ben Kennedy, by the way. Good program there for Kaz.
Absolutely. Definitely a good program. They won a couple races here in this
Looks
series.
to the inside, and boy, backs off just in time as Kenzie takes her position.
Yeah, he's really forcing the issue. She knows he's there for sure, and I think, at this point, she's doing the right thing. She's not watching her mirror. She's driving her race, her track, and hoping that, he protects and makes the right decisions, and she'll hold on to it. Ooh,
Not sure if she agrees with that decision. You can feel, other than the bumping, but you can also feel a driver there, can't you?
Yes, you definitely can. You can hear it, you can feel it. The bumping, that really helps to feel it, obviously. You see her getting sideways off the corner. And, at this point, sometimes, especially in these types of races, you might just want to let that 3 go because you might end up facing backwards at some point here of how aggressive he's being. He really wants this position.
And now to the inside. Grala's going to get it. Moved her aside just a little bit coming off the corner. And that's a technique that these young drivers can learn on these short tracks, isn't it, Parker?
Yeah, when you see that and it goes so well and smoothly, you say, okay, that's good. That's what you need to do. And as you get into the higher series, being able to use that finesse, not just run into someone, but finesse them out of the way, that will be very important to be able to go through fields at short tracks without ruffling too many feathers.
Rico Abreu moves through as well in the 98 car. He is now in 10th. Rustin back to 11th. Haven't missed anything up front. It's Scott Heckert and Dalton Sargent. Heckert now moving by David Garbo Jr. in that 31, trying to put him another lap down.
Yeah, it's 34. We've talked about it time and time again. It's just been dominant. Look at it. It looks like he's on a Sunday drive at sometimes here. I think the 51 has done a great job to stay intact with him, but just hasn't shown the speed to get up there.
Less than 25 to go at Bowman Gray Stadium. It's now a Saturday night short track feature for Scott Heckert to win. Scott Heckert in the 34 has led all night long here at Bowman Gray Stadium in the NASCAR Hall of Fame 150. It's less than 10 laps to go now for him to keep the lead, and he's opened up a huge gap over second, Parker.
Yeah, this 34 has just continued to show its dominance. Really driven away through traffic, made the right decisions, kept his car clean, takes the lead of this race, and really looks without incident here going on to win this one tonight.
And Sargent, who entered tonight 8th in points, sometimes just better for him to say, I'll take a good points night and move on.
Absolutely. This is one of those places that if you can come out here in the top 3 with a somewhat clean race car, you've had a great night, I feel like. And especially for Dalton Sargent, who needed a good run to get back on track and get back on track to the points. This is a night for him to take and savor and say, okay, we took a second-place race car and we finished second.
Scott Heckert, the Ridgefield, Connecticut driver, continues to pace. Championship leader William Byron involved in a spin mid-race. He entered tonight as the series points leader, but not by a lot.
No, and he's going to take a hit in the points tonight after that incident. And a little bit of a product that he'll hopefully take home and learn from, the saying, you know what, maybe if I was just a little bit more patient there at that 22 of Austin Hill, there was still a lot of time to go at this racetrack, I might have found myself with a solid top 5 and extending that points lead, or at least keeping a large chunk of it.
Austin Hill in the 22, who is involved with Byron. You see that lap 99 incident. He's driving back through as well, but both of those drivers will look toward another race to make their night.
Yeah, it's one of those what could have been sort of feelings for those guys.
4 to go this time by for Scott Heckert. He's won in the NASCAR K&N Pro Series East before, but they were on road courses, Parker. Now he's showing his prowess on the oval.
Yeah, I know Scott very well. We grew up together, racing go-karts together, and he was always really good on road courses, as that's where we started. But ovals for him, is something of a learning curve, but tonight he's showing that that learning curve is coming to an abrupt end as he's hopefully going to put it in victory lane.
And as we were talking about Heckert, Dalton Sargent with a final charge. It'll be 2 to go this time by, but the 51 is closing on the 34.
Absolutely, but that 34 has been on the pole tonight and led every lap like a pitcher in baseball. He could possibly throw a perfect game.
Down the backstretch, coming to the white flag this time. Heckert in heavy traffic. Sargent just 6 car lengths behind.
This is where Scott needs to be really smart here with the heavy track in front of him. I know the 51 is coming, but his spotter's telling him that. He's trying to do all the right things and protect that gap.
Sargent within a couple of car lengths as they go down the backstretch. 1 car in front of the leader, but it's not going to be enough. Scott Heckert is going to win at Bowman Gray Stadium.
An absolutely dominant victory by that 34. Really, really impressive night.
The 51 of Dalton Sargent, a great last few laps charge. Teammate trying to catch teammate, but he didn't have anything for Heckert, and he certainly didn't have track position. it was going to be tough to get by him even if he did catch him.
Yeah, he was going to have to rough him up to get by, and I just don't think the team would have been too happy with that one, Dave.
Third career victory for Scott Heckert here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We'll talk to him when we come back. K&N Pro Series Racing on NBCSN is brought to you by K&N High Flow Air Filters and Air Intake Systems, because everyone loves that fast car smell. The NASCAR Hall of Fame 150 is over. The winner is Scott Heckert. There was some bumping, there was some banging, but Heckert had the fastest car in the best position. Derek.
Scott Heckert is a road course specialist, but tonight he will write his name into the history books at the Bowman Gray Stadium. He dominated tonight, and Scott, how gratifying is it to finally get a win on an oval after all of your wins are on road courses?
Oh, it's great. I mean, we've had it coming for a long time. These guys are awesome. Yeah, it's just we had a perfect car, and we've had it before, just hadn't had the chips fall our way, and just these guys prepared another one and avoided the carnage of Bowman Gray.
How much pressure was on you tonight, knowing the rich history of this car and all the wins that it had?
Yeah, well, I'm pleased to add another. I hope in 5 years they're talking about, oh, Scott Heckert drove that thing, and still going to victory lane. And I had a lot of pressure just because I knew in practice this was a great car, and at some point it's up to the driver, and these guys left it up to me, and that's what I asked for. Thanks.
Scott Heckert wins one tonight at the Bowman Gray Stadium.
Yeah, like any great athlete, he wanted it in his hands. He went out there and he took what was his. That was a victory in a really impressive fashion.
You can put his name in the books. Scott Heckert, the winner here tonight. Dalton Sargent with a good run. Jay Beasley in fourth ties his career best.
Yeah, and two drivers we focused on earlier tonight, Devin Amos and Kaz Gralla, having good nights as well. Kaz coming back from that incident earlier in the race.
Yeah, had a spin and finished it as he did. A couple of drivers who are disappointed tonight, including William Byron, 15th place for the championship leader coming into tonight's event. Derek is with second place, Dalton Sargent.
Well, Dalton Sargent started third at the drop of the green tonight, comes home in that second spot, but how important was it to have that inside line?
It was so important. This track, it really seems like you get shuffled back if you start there on the outside. Luckily enough that we were able to get in on every restart, so it really played into our advantage on being able to hold off the 5. But overall, I just have to say thank you to everybody at Harry Scott Motorsports, Justin Marks. They gave us a great 51 Colt Chevy tonight, and the car was just really great. We just didn't have enough to get to the 34, but overall, good points run for the night, and really happy to get a good finish after some of our bad streaks.
That's what I was just going to ask you. You've had some bad luck in the last couple of weeks. Do you think that now you're turning the corner?
I hope so. Everything just seems to be like bad luck. Had a flat at Iowa and, just been struggling a little bit, but I think this second place finish is going to give us a boost of confidence for the entire team to just go out there and run better.
Second place for Dalton Sargent.
That's definitely right, Dave. When you can get a good run like that after a couple bad ones, you can start moving forward with positive momentum.
Austin Hill and Kyle Benjamin gained a point, but with that victory, Scott Heckert gained 19 points on championship leader William Byron. Derek is standing by now with J.J. Haley.
Well, H. Scott Motorsports pretty much dominated tonight here at the Bowman Gray Stadium. J.J. Haley comes home in third. How was the run from your seat tonight? Looked like it was a really tough race.
Yeah, the Madhouse is definitely a different environment. H. Scott with Justin Marks bring dominant cars. We just put a whipping on all them other boys. So we had a good race. I'm happy the car's clean. That was most important to finish, and finishing my best career finish ever is pretty special to me. So we'll build on this and hopefully have a good run next week.
How important was track position tonight with all that traffic?
Qualifying up front was really key. You saw Greg Gaulding and Jay Beasley make their way up, but it definitely took a while and they just didn't have it for me. So track position is key at a short track like this, and I'm really, really happy with the results.
J.J. Haley comes home third on the podium tonight.
And he's right, Parker. His team did put a whipping on him.
Yeah, absolutely. But J.J. Haley himself actually really did a great job of being patient and being on the outside as many times as he was able to get to the inside and get a solid top 3 finish.
The West Series goes to what used to be a quarter mile next. It's now the 3/8 mile Shasta Speedway. Check your local listings for that K&N Pro Series West event coming up. Well, the night started with Scott Heckert on the pole. He had a great qualifying lap. He led the field to green, and he led the entire race, but it wasn't without incident. As Heckert went for the win, Holloman went around, Beasley got through, Gaulding was safe, except for a little body damage, but that's normal at the Madhouse. William Byron got into trouble, but hangs on to the points lead as the series heads to Langley Speedway next. Scott Heckert, checkered flag in hand. We thank you for watching here on NBCSN. For Derek Perniciglio and Parker Kligerman, I'm Dave Burns saying congrats to Scott. We'll see you next time.
This copyrighted telecast may not be reproduced, retransmitted, or used in any form without the authorized written consent of NASCAR Broadcasting. NASCAR would like to thank all of our loyal fans for your continued support, and we hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.